YouTube Ozic going the Goat House is back with Longshot Blockbuster NFL trades that make a bit of sense. Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones actually sparked this trade video idea. Let's break down some scenarios. And again, this is more of a Blockbuster trade scenarios video, not necessarily predictions. I'm not sitting here saying Micah Parsons will get traded, but rumors are starting to fly, and for good reasons, really. A couple things. He needs an extension. He's not holding out. He wants to be there, we think, but still needs that extension. He's one of the better players in the league, and now Jerry Jones kind of throws him under the bus a little bit, rips into Micah Parsons, and was mistaken in his words as well. And Parsons isn't happy. Tension's starting to fly a little bit, so you never know. There's going to be teams lining up to trade for Parsons, but the compensation will be tough. It's going to take a lot. A young star that is only getting better, and even though he needs an extension, he is worth whatever he gets. And I kind of use the Khalil Mack trade from the Raiders to the Bears in his prime as reference a little bit. This is obviously more compensation, but that was years ago. As years go on, these star players are worth more and more, and he is very young. He's only 26 years old. His best football is ahead of him. Remember, he switched from off-ball linebacker to edge rusher, so he still has upside. Would be a great fit for the Chargers. And when narrowing down landing spots, you got to find teams that have a load of cap space. They have that available spending money in the future to be able to give out this huge extension. It has to be a fit, a need for right now, the future. Chargers check all the boxes. A really good team that checks a lot of boxes. Have a lot of future cap space. The Tennessee Titans, more of a rebuilding team, but they have a ton of space. Would be interested, and there's a few other sneaky teams as well, but there's not a long list of teams that would be able to make this happen as much as they wanted to. I mean, a beautiful fit would be Dan Quinn and the Washington Commanders, back with Dan Quinn, but the Cowboys probably aren't trading him one, even though by Jerry Jones's, words, maybe he'd consider it, but they're probably not trading him, and if they did, they would not trade him to the Washington Commanders. But 2 first-round picks, a third and a fifth, also tagged along. It'll be pretty tough to get this exactly right in terms of the compensation if it actually happened. But a lot of picks, 2 first-round picks involved here for the Cowboys, and the Chargers get the guy of the future playing with Khalil Mack and Tui Pelotu this year, and Khalil Mack has one more year left on his deal. So obviously, maybe done after that. So Parsons will be their guy to help him right now, contend, and for the future. Xavier Leggett, second-year player only, so it would be a little odd if he got dealt. There's really no big rumors about it, but he is moving down the depth chart on the Carolina Panthers offense. As they drafted Tetairoa McMillan, they got Jimmy Horn Jr. as well. I've already heard some good things, even though it's way too early to judge. But they also have Adam Thielen, who's still balling at a very high level, and Jalen Coker looked awesome as well. And Leggett just didn't quite work last year, but was only a rookie, really could turn it around at any given time. So there's no reason for the Panthers to panic and trade him. They would get much less than where they just drafted him a year ago. So they shouldn't be desperate to do it, but maybe they saw enough. They like the new options they have, and maybe they want to extend Adam Thielen, which he's a little older. You don't necessarily have to, but man, he was still so good last year. So maybe they decide, hey, we'll move on from him. I thought the perfect fit was the San Francisco 49ers. They traded Deebo Samuel this offseason. This would be an obvious, that similar style replacement of Deebo Samuel. The 49ers are also kind of looking for receivers, as Pearsall's dealing with a little bit of injury, nothing major. Brandon Aiyuk might not be back till midseason. And now they have Jawan Jennings' situation, looking for a contract. They haven't given it to him yet. But so that would be, I think, the obvious fit there. The Panthers, for them to do this, they probably would want more than a third-round pick, but they're not going to get that. But maybe they just decide they've seen enough, and he's a little bit down the depth chart, and they want to get something for him right now because they'll value those draft picks. So just an interesting kind of dream trade, great fit for the 49ers. Could be the next Deebo. It'd be a lot of fun, obviously. And speaking of the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk, this would be a dream trade, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, just so it's kind of done. There's been talks about it. It just doesn't seem like Aiyuk. There's been talks about it for a bit, and it kind of got annoying last year, and it just doesn't feel like Aiyuk really wants to be there. It's not really a firm thing where he definitely does not want to, but you just don't really get the sense that he's thrilled with the situation there. And even before he got injured, the production, the connection with Purdy wasn't great. But, that was just in a small sample size last year because you felt like there was a connection before that. But he's been linked to the Raiders in the past. It seems like he really wants to play there, and they might be even more appealing now because the better coaching staff, but more importantly, a much better quarterback. Whether you think Geno Smith's a good quarterback or not, I mean, he's a solid quarterback. He's experienced. He gets receivers the football. Has a lot of production, and Aiyuk would be very happy there. I feel like it almost kind of been put out there that, his family at least, or even him, kind of a Raiders fan, and just wanted to be in Las Vegas. So there's been some chatter about that in the past. So that's a place I believe he would want to play. And the Raiders, they have pretty decent depth. They got guys that could be something. Jack Besh could be very special. This other guy, Jacoby Myers, is pretty underrated. They have other options as well, but they don't have that legit guy. The compensation is the tough part here because he was worth a lot more than this before he was injured, but he's coming off pretty tough injury, might not be back till around mid-season. The 49ers might just want to, take something less than his skill value just to shake that contract. And, the other team has to be willing to take on that contract. I'm mainly talking about future years on that contract is what's going to be a little bit of an obstacle. But the Raiders, I think, would be interested, would benefit from adding a big-time receiver. Just would have to wait a little bit for him. But it would help them now when he came back. But they're kind of a future team at the same time, so it helped them long-term. So, yeah, third and a fifth round pick makes some sense. I think skill level's more than that. But for the 49ers, who already, you can't say this for sure, but you kind of get the feeling that at least some of that organization, some of the staff in the front office, or maybe the coaching staff, regret how big that contract was, and maybe they just want to kind of shake that because they kind of changed their approach this offseason. They're very easy to move on from guys and just looking to regain or add more draft picks and build to the draft. So I thought this one made sense for really all three sides, both teams, and Brandon Aiyuk, an appealing landing spot that probably got more appealing than it already was for him. How about a Travis Etienne trade? There's been some rumors. I think it's been more so fans, social media, but understandable where they come up with this, right? The new staff drafted Bayshul Tootin. They didn't pick the current running backs that were already on the roster. They also have Tank Bigsby, who broke out last year, looked phenomenal. And Travis Etienne still has some talent in him, but they could say, hey, we have a number of backs. We can move Etienne. He's on an expiring deal. Or they could say, he might be our most talented back. He might be our running back one. Why trade him even though he has an expiring deal? So that's why it's no guarantee they trade him, but it does make sense. The Chicago Bears made a lot of sense because they could be looking for another running back still, somebody to pair with DeAndre Swift. I still believe in Etienne. I think he could be better than DeAndre Swift, be a good pairing. Obviously, especially in Ben Johnson's offense, I think he could tear it up. He's a really good pass catcher. Remember, Urban Meyer drafted him in Jacksonville to be more of like a hybrid, more like a slot receiver that could play running back, which is odd, but he's that good of a pass catcher. He's a phenomenal runner. We got 2 years ago, you'd say his value is definitely more in a fourth round pick. So things changed since then. New staff wasn't as good last year. Tank Bigsby kind of took off. Again, they drafted a new guy as well. Expiring deal, so that kind of drops his value down a little bit because it could be a rental for the Bears. They may have to extend him. We'll see. But the Jags very well could go. This new staff very well could go. This might be our RB1. This might be our most talented all-around back. We want to see what he has before that deal comes to that contract comes to an end, rather than just get a fourth-round pick. That's certainly possible as well. Not really a blockbuster trade here, but a dream one because I think Etienne's got a lot more in him than people think. A great fit, and it makes the Bears better, who should be looking for a running back still. And yes, a bit of a splash one here. More of a long shot, but I believe something like this could eventually happen. I'm not guaranteeing it. It's definitely more of a long shot for it to happen right now. But Anthony Richardson in this scenario to the Vikings doesn't have to necessarily be the Vikings of the team that stood out the most right now, even though they have J.J. McCarthy and Sam Howell. And we'll break that down. But Colts young quarterback Anthony Richardson still has upside. He was a raw prospect to begin with, so it's a guy you got to give time to reach that ceiling. And so it makes sense to kind of ride it out with them, right? But at the same time, you just get this feeling that the Colts, this current Colts staff, may I'm not saying they're giving up on him for sure, but they weren't hesitant at all to bench him. It happened to be against the Vikings was the first game of bench him and put Joe Flacco. And obviously that wasn't the smartest decision, but when Richardson came back in, he had flashes, but still not the smoothest thing. And then he had multiple injuries, and an injury has popped up this offseason, and they signed Daniel Jones. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they for sure signed Daniel Jones to start, but They didn't just sign. They didn't go, well, Anthony Richardson starting, let's just sign Daniel Jones and stash him. No, they're thinking that Daniel Jones could start for us. It's a good fit in Steichen's offense. He is going to compete, and he has a pretty decent shot at starting. And then Richardson already had an injury, and that kind of shifted things even more so towards Daniel Jones. But it's early. It's a little wide open. But the Colts, it just seems like the Colts just really aren't all in on Anthony Richardson. They really aren't. That's kind of been proven. So they could look to move him because look at the past when young quarterbacks that, really weren't working out, when they got traded, they end up going for a bit more than everyone expected. Now, this would be even more than that, a third-round pick that maybe could be elevated into a second-round pick. It could be something along those lines, but it's still a young, raw prospect with traits, with tools, with a lot of upside. So now is actually, unless he starts playing a lot better, but if he starts playing a lot better, you're not going to trade him. So right now might be the height of his trade value technically. So something that could eventually happen, but he could end up starting week 1. He could be phenomenal for the Colts. It's a good system. They have weapons, and he has a lot of upside. He just needs more reps, right? It's been underwhelming. He's not the most accurate guy in the world. He's not making the smartest decision in the world, but he has flashes. He has upside. He has to stay freaking healthy. That's a big thing, too. But for the Vikings, I mean, a bonus here, it's not why I did it, but Kevin O'Connell was a guy that, kind of promoting Anthony Richardson, told him, stick in there. You got a lot of talent. And the Vikings are a spot where young quarterbacks can go. That look at Sam Darnold, that can revive their career. Look at Kirk Cousins, how he played for the Vikings, how he played for the Falcons. We looked really good for the Falcons early in the year. But it's a spot that elevates quarterback play, gets the most out of quarterbacks. So that's number one. You could say they have J.J. McCarthy. They even have Sam Howell. Well, I'm not sitting here saying they trade for Anthony Richardson and start him over J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy is the plan. A couple things here. You do keep in mind that they tried to sign Daniel Jones back. They actually tried to sign Sam Darnold back. Not with a very super serious price point, but they kind of tried. They like J.J. McCarthy. They like him for the future. But remember, he was injured all last year. You never know if that could pop up again. If McCarthy struggles, you have another good option that you can kind of work with while McCarthy's starting. You can help grow, see if he can become something special, and then there's a lot more factors to it. If J.J. McCarthy ends up being really good, Anthony Richardson's trade value grows. I mean, we see teams do this all the time. They try to trade for a quarterback and they try to flip him. You can eventually flip him, and then teams would be interested. Oh, he learned from the Vikings. He learned from O'Connell, or he could end up filling in for them. So other than that, right now, this time of the year, everyone's quarterback situation is pretty set, right? I'd say the Titans need a backup right now, but that has nothing to do with Anthony Richardson, division rival. So it's like we're trying to find a team that, while everyone's quarterback situation is set, who is most likely to make this deal? I think the best, kind of the dream landing spot for Richardson to figure it out would be Minnesota, and then they would either decide, could this guy potentially be our long-term starter, depending on what J.J. McCarthy does, or could we flip him as he'd be more appealing after he learns from us. So it'd be kind of that situation there. So just an interesting one to think about. Again, this is kind of a fun video. Mainly was built around Micah Parsons. Didn't want to just talk about one player, so added some more. But we'll see what happens. Anthony Richardson very well could be the starting quarterback for the Colts. Not totally against that. I just want whoever looks the best in this training camp preseason process to start. But compensation's a little tricky because you could argue the compensation should be a lot lower than that because some people want to call him a bust already, and it's just a shot in the dark. You trade for him and he might be nothing. He's going to sit. So why would you trade a third that could become a second? But I was thinking if he ends up starting X amount of games, then that's probably a good thing and it can end up more. But the Colts just drafted him with a very, very high pick. I know it wasn't very, very recent, but they're not just going to give them away at the same time. And quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks with upside, even if they haven't worked out so far, tend to go for a little bit more than people think. But I think the main knock here is the durability concerns. That's what could stop it from being this high. But just mainly a fun, shocking trade that, I don't like throwing ones in here that, like, I can't. There's no logic behind it. I don't just do that. I kind of explain that there's some logic behind it on why it maybe, possibly could eventually happen. I'm not just going to throw any random player, any random trade. Doesn't make any sense, like 0% sense. That's not going to be thrown in these types of videos. But we do like the very realistic trade videos all the time. We've predicted a lot this off season. Actually, we can do some more of those. There's going to be a lot more action with trades and cuts as we get closer or within preseason even. So we'll have you covered for all that as well. So join us, like, subscribe, to notifications on, come up with your dream or blockbuster trades in the comments. I would love to see just scenarios posted in the comment after comment. That'd be really cool to see. So let me see them. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.